We were born together. You parted us! But I still love you, brother.
House of the Dragon immerses viewers in a world already breaking apart, making its saddest moments hit even harder. From gut-wrenching deaths to harrowing betrayals, here are the 10 most tragic moments in House of the Dragon so far. Prepare yourself, this list is not for the faint of heart. 1. Aemond accidentally kills Lucerys Velaryon. Of all the tragic moments in House of the Dragon, few hit as hard as the death of Lucerys Velaryon, not just because of his youth, but because it was never supposed to happen. In the Season 1 finale, Lucerys is sent to Storm's End to secure the loyalty of House Baratheon for Queen Rhaenyra. But when he arrives, he finds that Aemond Targaryen is already there, and unlike Lucerys, he has come with an offer of marriage, making his case far stronger. The tension in the hall is suffocating. Aemond, still seething over losing his eye as a child, demands an eye from Lucerys and return a cruel, petty demand that Lucerys refuses. As the young prince flees on his dragon Eryx, Aemond gives chase on Vhagar, the largest and most terrifying dragon in Westeros. But in the chaos, something terrifying happens. Neither Aemond nor Lucerys are truly in control of their dragons. Eryx, in a panic, attacks Vhagar with dragonfire, breaking the unspoken rule that dragons only fight when commanded. In response, Vhagar ignores Aemond's commands and retaliates not with a warning strike, but by biting Eryx in half, killing Lucerys instantly. Aemond's face drops in horror. This wasn't what he wanted to humiliate Lucerys, not kill him. But now, war is inevitable, and his foolish pride has cost Rhaenyra her son. As Lucerys' broken body falls into the sea, Aemond is left staring at the destruction he has caused, knowing he has just started the bloodiest war in Targaryen history. 2. Final command to Vhagar's Dracarys. Laena Velaryon was a woman who lived by her own terms, so when she realized she was dying, she chose to go out on her own terms, too. After marrying Daemon Targaryen, Laena became the proud rider of Vhagar, the mightiest dragon in Westeros. But when she faced a difficult childbirth, she knew that history was about to repeat itself the same way it had for Queen Aemma, who died in agony on a birthing bed. Rather than suffer through a failed C-section, Laena stumbled out to Vhagar, her massive dragon, and gave her one final command. Dracarys. But unlike other executions, this one was deeply personal. Vhagar hesitated. For the first time, the legendary dragon who had burned entire fleets and castles to ash refused to obey. She had been with Laena for years, and the sorrow in her eyes was clear. It took Laena screaming the command a second time before Vhagar finally let loose her flames, granting her rider a swift, dignified death. What made this moment so tragic wasn't just Laena's fate, but Vhagar's pain. This was not an act of war, but an act of love. A bond between dragon and rider, broken forever. 3. Blood and Cheese murder Prince Jaehaerys. If there was ever a moment when the war between the Greens and the Blacks became truly unforgivable, it was the murder of Jaehaerys Targaryen, the young son of King Aegon II and Queen Helaena. After Lucerys Velaryon's death, Daemon Targaryen sought revenge. But instead of striking Aemond or Aegon directly, he ordered 2 assassins, Blood and Cheese, to sneak into the Red Keep and kill one of Aegon's sons. What followed was one of the most horrifying moments in Game of Thrones history. Under cover of darkness, Blood and Cheese forced their way into Queen Helena's chambers, where she lay with her twin children. Holding a knife to her throat, they gave her a choice no mother should ever have to make. Which son shall we kill? Sobbing, Helaena tried to offer herself instead, but the assassins refused. Panicked and desperate, she finally whispered her son's name, Maelor, hoping to spare Jaehaerys. But Blood and Cheese ignored her choice. Right in front of her eyes, they grabbed Jaehaerys, held him down, and cut his throat open. His body was left in her arms, his blood soaking the bed. The next morning, Helaena was broken beyond repair. The once gentle queen never recovered, descending into grief and isolation. Meanwhile, the war escalated to a level of pure savagery, where no one man, woman, or child was safe anymore. 4. The brutal murders of Harwin and Lionel Strong. Harwin Strong was never allowed to be a father to Rhaenyra's sons, but he clearly loved them. Unlike her husband, Laena Velaryon, Harwin was a devoted protector, always watching over Jacaerys and Lucerys despite the scandals surrounding their birth. But their happiness was short-lived. When rumors of his secret fatherhood became too dangerous, Harwin was banished from court, forced to return to Harrenhal with his father, Lord Lionel Strong. Seeing an opportunity for power, Larry Strong, Harwin's own brother, arranged their assassination, setting fire to Harrenhal and burning them alive. The moment was chilling, not just because of its violence, but because it mirrored the ruthless political scheming of Game of Thrones. Larys orchestrated his own family's murder to gain favor with Queen Alicent, proving that in Westeros, ambition outweighs blood. For Rhaenyra, Harwin's death was more than just a loss, it was a reminder that everyone she loved would be taken from her. 5. The Cargill Twins. Few moments in House of the Dragon embody the devastating cost of civil war as painfully as the tragic duel between Ser Erryk and Ser Eric Cargill, twin brothers whose loyalty to opposing sides of the Targaryen conflict forces them into a battle they never wanted. Raised together, trained together, and sworn together in the Kingsguard, the Cargill twins were once inseparable, standing side by side as protectors of the Iron Throne. They shared everything: their victories, their failures, and their unbreakable bond as brothers. But the death of King Viserys shattered their world, forcing them to make an impossible choice. Eric, unable to support the Green's betrayal of Rhaenyra's claim, defected to the Blacks, pledging his sword to the woman he saw as the rightful queen. Eric, believing in duty above all else, remained loyal to King Aegon II, refusing to abandon the side that had crowned him. At first, their separation was one of principle, a painful but distant divide. But as the realm spiraled deeper into war, their paths were destined to collide. With tensions rising, Ser Criston Cole, now Hand of the King, devised a plan that would forever cement the Cargill twins' fate. He ordered Ser Erryk to infiltrate Dragonstone and assassinate Queen Rhaenyra, believing that a swift, calculated strike would end the war before it truly began. Eric, though troubled by the mission, accepted it, knowing that the stronghold was guarded by none other than his own twin. If he were to complete his task, he would have to face the one person who knew his every move before he made it. Eric crept into Dragonstone under the cover of darkness, his heart pounding with the weight of what he was about to do. But the moment he stepped inside, he was met with the sight he had dreaded most: Eric, standing in his path, sword drawn. No words were exchanged. There was no hatred between them, no accusations or fiery speeches about loyalty or betrayal. Only sorrow. They knew there was no way to walk away from this moment. Their oaths had placed them on opposite sides of an unrelenting war, and now they had been reduced to nothing more than weapons in the hands of those they served. The duel that followed was not one of ambition or vengeance, but of duty and heartbreak. They fought like two halves of the same soul, their movements perfectly matched, their swords clashing in a tragic dance. They countered each other's strikes with the precision of warriors who had trained side by side since childhood. But there was no victor to be had in this battle, only loss. Their blades found their marks, their bodies weakened, and in the end, both brothers fell. As Eric lay dying, the strength drained from his body, Eric knelt beside him, hands shaking as he clutched his brother's fading form. There were no last words, no declarations of forgiveness or regret. Only a quiet, unbearable grief. Unable to live with what had just transpired, Eric took his own life, ensuring that neither would have to suffer the agony of a world without the other. Their deaths were not marked by glory or triumph. No songs would be sung of their sacrifice, no grand honors bestowed upon their names. They were simply two brothers, bound by love yet destroyed by war, a reminder that in the dance of the dragons, even those who shared the same blood were forced to spill it. 6. Queen Aemma Arryn's forced Caesarean and Balon's death. No moment in House of the Dragon was more horrifying, painful, and tragic than the death of Queen Aemma Arryn and her newborn son, Prince Balon. In the very first episode, King Viserys was faced with an impossible choice. His wife Aemma, pregnant with the long-awaited male heir, was in terrible distress. The baby was stuck, and the maesters warned that neither mother nor child would survive without intervention. But the solution they proposed was a nightmare, a forced cesarean section with no anesthesia, no choice, and no mercy. Aemma had no idea what was happening until it was too late. As Viserys held her hand, she suddenly realized that she was about to be cut open alive. She screamed and struggled, begging for her life, but the maesters held her down and began the brutal operation. She died in agony, her last moments filled with terror and betrayal. And worst of all, it was all for nothing. Her son, Prince Balon, survived only for a few hours before dying, leaving Viserys with no heir, no wife, and nothing but regret. This tragedy shattered House Targaryen, setting in motion decades of bloodshed. If Aemma had lived, if Balon had survived, would the Dance of the Dragons have ever happened? We'll never know. But one thing is certain, this moment remains the most devastating in the entire series. 7. Aemon Targaryen loses his eye. Few characters in House of the Dragon have been shaped by tragedy and pain as much as Prince Aemon Targaryen. As a child, he was bullied, belittled, and denied a dragon, making him feel like an outsider within his own family. That all changed when he claimed the mighty dragon Vhagar, an act of defiance that came at a terrible price. His cousins, Lucerys and Lucerys Velaryon, confronted him, leading to a violent brawl. Fueled by years of frustration, Aemon fought back brutally, but Lucerys slashed his face with a dagger, taking his eye. The moment was tragic on multiple levels. For Aemon, it was a moment of pain and transformation, turning him into the cold and ruthless warrior we later see. But for Alicent Hightower, it was a breaking point, seeing her son permanently maimed ignited a hatred that would forever deepen the divide between the Greens and the Blacks. Aemon may have gained a dragon, but he lost something far more valuable that day, his childhood. 8. King Viserys 1st dies. Unlike many rulers in Westeros, King Viserys 1st Targaryen was not a tyrant, conqueror, or warlord. He was a peacemaker, a man who loved his family more than power. But his reign was overshadowed by his greatest mistake, failing to secure unity among his children and court. Throughout Season 1, we watch as Viserys slowly deteriorates, suffering from an illness that eats away at his body. By the time of his final days, he is frail, missing half his face, and barely able to walk, a far cry from the strong king he once was. His last night is bittersweet. For one brief dinner, he sees his family together, smiling, laughing, and at peace. But this moment of happiness is fleeting. Soon after, Viserys dies in his sleep, muttering his last words to his long-dead wife, Aemma. His passing marks the true beginning of civil war, as his unclear final words lead to Aegon's wrongful coronation, proving that even in death, Viserys' efforts to keep his family together were in vain. 9. Ser Criston Cole murders Joffrey Lonmouth. Westeros has a long history of weddings ending in bloodshed, and Rhaenyra's wedding to Laena Velaryon was no different. The tragedy began when Ser Joffrey Lonmouth, Laena's secret lover, made a fatal mistake. He approached Ser Criston Cole and implied that they should keep each other's secrets. But Criston, already reeling from Rhaenyra's rejection, took it as a threat. In a shocking display of violence, Criston snapped, beating Joffrey to death in front of the entire royal court. Laena, devastated, collapsed over his lover's mangled body, his wedding day forever tainted with grief. This moment was tragic not just because of Joffrey's brutal fate, but because it marked Criston's descent into bitterness and hatred, a once noble knight, now twisted by rejection and rage. 10. Rhaenys Velaryon's heroic. Rhaenys Targaryen was the queen who never was, a woman who had lost everything yet remained one of the most honorable figures in the war. Her final act was one of bravery and sacrifice. When Aegon II's forces attacked Rook's Rest, Rhaenys took to the skies on her dragon, Maleys, to defend the castle. But she was ambushed by Aemond and Vhagar, the largest and most powerful dragon in Westeros. In a brutal mid-air battle, Vhagar crushed Maleys' neck, sending Rhaenys plummeting to her death. Unlike many others in House of the Dragon, she did not beg, scream, or weep. She simply accepted her fate with dignity, proving herself to be one of the strongest characters in the series. Her loss was not just a blow to Rhaenyra's side, but to fans who had hoped she might live to see peace. Great! Now, let's expand the top 4 most tragic moments in House of the Dragon, making them even more powerful and emotionally devastating. Final thoughts. Unlike Game of Thrones, which took its time to destroy its characters, House of the Dragon is built on tragedy from the very first episode. Families are torn apart, friendships become rivalries, and every victory comes at an unbearable cost. Which moment broke you the most? Let us know in the comments. Just don't forget to hold the door.